So, Shalom, peace, I'm alaikum, my people. Back with the second video, real short one this time. Just want y'all to get this, so later on when y'all do y'all studies, you're like, oh, I see what he's saying. And that empowers our people mindset, because even when we each one teach one, when we start thinking and start knowing stuff that we didn't know before, the ancestors also talk to you, or the ethers in the atmosphere, which we know is true. So I like to talk scientific to prove natural. See, this is what I'm doing. I like to talk scientific to prove the spirituality, because again, science is only the study of everything. Spirituality is the manifestation of energy, which is everything. Don't let that confuse you. So, when y'all finally do y'all research on Mauritania and how all of this was called Mauritania, it wasn't called Morocco. Again, Morocco Empire had nothing to do with just North Africa. It had something to do all with West and East. Morocco Empire came together just like we use trust or corporations or any other organizations that come together. It came together because there was a bunch of people who was trying to protect commodities, and that made an empire. Empires was the preamble or the examples of nations today. So Mauritania, when you read about it, this is brought up in the Bible. Mauritanian people are the Carthaginians. And give me 1 second. You good?
Oh, no, yeah.
My man. Sorry, y'all, I'm over here in the conference room over here in the Anacostia Library. Again, that is a Choctaw American name, Narco Chunk. I love these people, man. They're giving me the resources, gave me a room, feel me, so I can teach y'all in the quiet and focus on what I'm saying. I got some stuff to say, y'all. We getting better views, you know what I'm saying? Like I say, I make my own money too, but shout out to y'all investing in me. I'm gonna start coming real prettier. I'm glad I started off like this though, so y'all can see me going through my downloads, which I know I'm a regular person. I ain't no agent. Ain't nobody sent me to do this. I really invested in myself in the streets and set my butt down and say, let me study, because I gotta figure out where I'm headed, Mo. Like, we all going through the same cycles. How do we be aware, because that's godly, first of all, and break the cycles, not to be destructive, but to be constructive. And if something there taking up space, the only way you can build is to destruct first. But it has to be what? Reasonable, justified, because that's what gods do. So, I'm trying to break the psychosis of even people thinking there's more than one God. We are the only different gods. There's only one main higher source. And we don't even have to say one. I only like the word one because one making it seem like it's separating itself from something else. It is everywhere, if y'all get me. And I don't mean to offend nobody, so let's stay on common knowledge. When you read Mauritania, you'll figure out Maury, that's where the Moors or the Maori word come from and it stems from. Mauritania is mentioned as Carthage. I'm sorry, let me take that back. Mauritania is mentioned amongst the stories of Carthage, which Carthage was over from now-day Morocco to now-day Tunisia. And Algerians was just up and coming at that point, which Algeria is, as you can see the word, that's why I say etymology. Automatically you should know, because of Al, the Algeria is coming from Arabic. Like I said, Libya wasn't there. Mizraim and Egypt spread it all over here. And my point is that you have to understand these geological locations as you read stories and timelines, so you can get a full circle understanding or spectrum and comprehend not one thing is happening at the same time, but multiple things are happening at the same time, and multiple things are affecting each other at the same time. See what I'm saying? So, take a good look at the map, man, and understand that these Phoenicians are trading across here, going down to Ghana, Mali, Nigeria, the same places that they say we were stolen from, because that was the best lie that they can come with that makes sense. Again, they can't tell a whole complete theory or a fictional story. You're not gonna believe it. They ain't gonna say dragons drove you over here. Ain't no dragons drove you over here. You ain't gonna get no credibility for that story. So now it's just trying to tell the truth. I just want y'all to see the truth. Look up Mauritania. Mortary is what the Greeks used to call this. Mortary is what Maori people is who the Greeks know to used to be global travelers already. The Greeks who used to study from Egyptians who was already in cahoots and trade with West Africa, specifically Mauritania, and the Carthage, was already understanding that they were stewards to what was going on Globally, people was already documenting history. That's why they had that's why they had a library. This is why they had a library. Globally, people was already setting up post and trade camps, which we call colonies today. Nothing new under the sun, y'all. We violated ourselves, and this is why we're going through what we're going through. The only way we're going to fix it is to understand where we came from. So until it's common knowledge. So then it would be common knowledge on how to move. Just like it became common knowledge or a fad to wear Jordans and not to wear the fake Jordans. Or just not to know who Jordan was, period. Why do we all commonly know who Jordan is? See, we don't understand the power in sharing data and sharing the same thoughts and sharing the same concept and sharing the same interests. It's deeper than just manifesting money. It's a magnetism, electromagnetic frequency, which is in the ethers, that empowers us when we share the same knowledge, when we like the same music, when we do the same. It's really a culture. And the further your culture expands, the more power it has. So, as we got this, I do want to show you this, so y'all know I'm not tripping. Even Atlas said. And the more that we talk like this, the more they're going to have to bring out more truth. Because 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I was in school as a JIT, they wasn't telling me like this. You're measuring at nearly 10 million square kilometers, 3.8 million square miles by the most common definition. By the most common definition. Why? Because they already admitting that we got to try to keep up with their lies so we don't look so stupid. But it's actually not a continent. So we're going to say by the most common definition, from the Ural Mountains west of Europe, it's officially the world's second smallest continent. So let's read it again. It's saying that Europe, from the Ural Mountains west, Europe is officially the world's smallest continent, even though it's not a continent. So see how that's what I mean by they're trying to push and make you believe in their narrative. But if I say that dogs got wings, I can't make you believe in that narrative. Now, why is that? Because you can see it for your own eyes, right? So let me let you see this for your own eyes. Europe is not a continent. They just admitted it. But for the most common definition, because they want to call it a continent and people already widely accepted it because people sharing the same interest and idea is the power. Did y'all not get that? Did I not just say that? Okay, y'all. So what happens when we share the same power and know that we're not from Africa, that we're actually indigenous to America, and we go by bloodline, and still the common law is the title of nobility and the first class nationality, what we call citizenship, goes to the people of who is hereditarily connected to the land by blood, which is what? Copper-skinned people. This is what? The secret, y'all. This is what they don't want you to know because they want to make all the lands public. So it can only be commercialized. And in that way, it can be monopolized. And in that way, again, that 1% or that corporate entity controls it. That's the spiritual war. Starts in the mental first. Starts with your spirits first. Spirals down. In geological or geologic terms, it is a western peninsula of the massive Eurasia supercontinent. There you go. That's the real name of the continent, Eurasia. And apps, if you're going to because again, it's just a name is a name. You can call it Libiba if you want to. But because you called it Asian, we agreed to it. See why it's called agreeance? And then you call something else Europe. And then we realized that neither one is a separate continent by itself. You got to call it Eurasia. See, it's called agreeance. In the absence of Eastern Russia, it becomes smaller even than Australia. Right, because Russia is connected to Asia. So Russia should still be Asia, but Russia is counted as its own continent. See the illusions we live in? But small size notwithstanding, Europe has at times played a disappointing role in human affairs, haven't they? One reason that is generally considered a distinct continent today. This is why they consider it a continent, because the mass, not just say destruction, but also influence that they had over the world. Because again, it's not just Caucasians. This is what I'm showing y'all. When y'all get to the real meat of my story and the stuff that I'm promoting, not only that we just from America, I'm showing you that they're tricking you with certain knowledge because Africans are the ones who did come up in Europe, as they want to say, people spread it out, but it was people who was arising as far as they could, as far as the sun can reach, put it like that, on Southern Europe. And it had nothing to do with changing people's colors. See what I'm saying? Because again, half of Europe was under ice. The only thing that was exposed was the only thing available for life to what? Prosper on. And even if it didn't have the right temperature, then life wouldn't prosper. This is how we can scientifically hypothesize that humans come from where? Near the equator. And the equator is not just in Africa, it also runs across what? South America, where one of the oldest bones in America has been found, the Lucia bones, which is a copper-skinned woman. Don't let them confuse y'all. Back to this, not to jump, but I'm just trying to show y'all, follow y'all in circles, because I know y'all brain got so many questions. Well, why do they give some Europe so much emphasis? Because what? They just said it. They had a disproportionate role in human affairs, even though they're so small. The same way we're letting 1% disproportionately control all of this public land and all of this private land. Despite its northern placement, Europe benefits from a relatively benign geography. For millennia, its landmass has been warmed by currents and winds from the south and west, raising its average temperatures significantly above the equivalent areas of North America and Asia. Why did I read it like that with emphasis? Because I'm telling you, go back to what I was telling you, is that I'm telling you, it go back to what I was telling you. I'm telling you it was going back to what I was telling you about not just the Arctic Ocean now, which is still promoting ice because it's cold up here, to all this northern states, but the actual parts of Europe that's caught 15 degrees or 10 degrees near the Arctic Circle was under ice. This is why this land is plush green, because the water is just receding. This is why some of this is still what? Desert and drought-like, because the barren ice has just receded off of it. So life is just what? Incubating there. Because that's what life does, it incubates. And this is how I know my hypothesis is logistically the best educated guess, because we all know from a petri dish in different scientific trials that life incubates, and it incubates with what? Water and sunlight in this environment. Now in another room or another dimension, because we're multidimensional, we'll talk about that later, it could be anything else. But in this dimension, we come from sunlight and water and fertile land. And the land only is fertile, just like our body is fertile, because it is the land, from what? Sunlight and water. So, despite the northern placement, Europe benefits are already benign. Okay, I read that. Okay, and again, it's warmed by the currents and the winds from the south and west, raising the average temperature significantly above the equivalent areas of North America and Asia. Again, what they're trying to say is that the winds, which are new and current to Eurasia, to the new ice-receded Eurasia, it brings fertile environments, or it brings about a fertile environment, because it's ever-changing geographic impact is being influenced as we speak, from them coming from I don't want to say ice age, but the last of the receding ice age, which is just happening for real over there, because it happened in different places everywhere. But over there, it's just receding from the Eurasia and Russian northern lands, Southern Europe and Middle East and Asia Minor, as they want to call it, or Asia Minor as they want to call it, was already dry for a good 5,000 to 10,000 years. Now, this is why they say that the ice age might have happened in 15,000 years, which goes back to North America and the Bering Straits opening it up. But again, that's another conversation, because these kind of conversations, which you have to put educated guesses in, are loopholes. Why? Because you and 100 other million people can have different other loopholes. And then somebody could just be asinine and say things that don't even have no scientific backing or logic to it, just because nobody can prove it. And that's what's going on now. So we have to stay on what we can prove. What we can prove is that Europe is not a continent by definition. Somebody's playing. What we can prove is that these lands look like ice just receded on them, and this is why this top is barren and it's not ready and fertile yet. And this is why this part right under it is more plush and green and fertile near the mountains, like they said, that is giving off byproduct of fresh water and winds because of the height of them, and securing certain lands to be fertile in this new exposed land or newly exposed geography. Because down here, where it's yellow, you can see this is yellow, and some of it's plush and some of it's not droughted, but let's say it's not the best neither. It's sandy, it's rocky, it's thirsty, it's muddy. And why? Because these lands was already worked on. They was already used throughout the centuries that we talking about the Phoenicians, about Jesus times. That was only 2,000 years ago, y'all. We in 2024 according to the Gregorian calendar. Come on, man. Wake up out the psychosis. That was yesterday to a god. See, this is about perspective. Because a baby, his time, or his reference to the day and time is like, shoot, all day seemed like a week to him. But to an adult, all week is actually 7 days. And I'm trying to compare it to something else. A day is really, I don't know how to compare it, but just know your time is shortened when you have less parental or spectrums of life. The higher your spectrum or the higher your parental view goes, the more time and the more data you can absorb. And the more shorter that other data you thought was long or too much is nothing actually. That's what I'm telling you. See what I'm saying? So the more you become godly, the more info you can take and the more things come smaller to you. So again, proving that, this is why we gotta stay on logic. Again, Europe is not a continent. Caucasians didn't become light because of the sunlight. Everybody didn't come out of Africa. People was here before the world broke apart. And the out of Africa theory is a theory. So if you want to disperse the fact that we was here before the world broke apart, then you got to disperse the fact that the out of Africa theory is not true. Because that's just somebody talking and putting their views together from a biased standpoint of who he think look alike and who doesn't. And even their DNA testers on that. Because again, if I wanted to control the narrative with millions of random DNA, all I do is got to pick the most closest DNA to say, hey, this DNA is close to this DNA, and that proves that y'all the same people. No, it just means that DNA is close to that DNA, brother. Especially if you know how infinite DNA is. You would know that it's not a needle in a haystack to try to say, hey, this hay is related to this hay. Or this hay had been chopped from the same type of grass. Just because they have the same type of cylindrical look or the same shape. Like, no, they actually was chopped from two different grass pieces. They come from two different roots. Of the same stock, but two different groups. And that inferiority position is why somebody wanted to control the narrative and make them like, you the same group, and then they're just a different group. And they the modernized group at that. Which was so discriminatory. Not to mention we did all of this, science, math. We are the fundamentals and the basics to the faculties of education and information and innovation and creation. Come on, man. Again, we have the powers and we are endowed with the powers of being God's helpers, little gods, depending on what you subscribe to. Again, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to be blasphemous. I don't want you to be, oh, he just said little gods, and I don't want to do that. This is not what I'm doing. I mean it with the genuine of my heart. And God know that I'm really being serene. I know that it's a higher power. I know that our mind and our God, it was so intelligent that it knew that people like me and others would want to reach that type of level and understand God. And he has, or it has, or she has different mechanisms and structure so we don't go too far on a plateau that disrupts the playing field or the spiritual field that we manifest in the physical, because this physical field has rules that it has to guide by. And this is where humans even get the order and rules. Again, this is why, oil and water don't mix, because the scientific rules, the rules behind matter and how matter should exist is the reason why water and oil don't mix. It's the reason why certain things shouldn't be going on inside of society too. But because of discrimination, we allow it. And it's like a social project or social science project. It's like things that shouldn't be happening happen, and we just want to wait to see how it's going to turn out. But that's the dynamics of the mind. Freedom of willpower. Nothing new under the sun. Right now I'm showing you India, who also had corn. Myanmar, which is funny, it sounds like Mayan, Mar and Mayan and this stuff kind of mean the same because it's like town or a plethora of people, which is like number 2. See what I'm saying? Which, like, in India, it was Sanskrit. The number 2 is Mayan. So ain't that funny? They got certain same words. This is also the people who used to trade with Timor. This is in the Bible with Timor. The Timor Sea is over here. And the people of Timor was trading with Malaysia and the Austronesians, Cambodians, Thailand, India, which is all dark indigenous people, y'all. It's not until recently, after Jesus' common era, see, this is a Morse code, that pale people start to come down from the Nordic area and become intermixing with the original people who are all over the world as we know it, the world that is inhabitable. So this is why I said this is a whole other conversation to even tell you where Caucasians and their type of DNA with the rhesus monkey actually comes from, that we call the Neanderthal, because these are just names until we put the concepts on. What is a Neanderthal? What is a rhesus monkey? It's just a name. All you could do is run around and regurgitate what somebody else, another researcher, told you. You see what I'm saying? Which is I'm doing now because I know it's proof that they got the RH. I know it's proof they're Neanderthal. But now we got to use our own senses and our eyes like Jesus told us to do to see what does it actually mean? What's the value? What does it change knowing that they are H positive, knowing that you come from the cousins of a rhesus monkey, which is actually a Neanderthal, the code words. And this is why you keep coding things and not just being straight up that you're a different species. Which is cool. It's all good. Today we here with love, awareness, and truth, because that's what's going to bring us peace and happiness. And that's our natural rights as humans in this social world that we have insurance in. Because our words are our bond, and we got to make people what? Stick to their words. That's all. This is China, y'all, leading to the Pacific Ocean, Taiwan. See what I'm saying? All this goes down to get you to Hawaii. These people started civilization just like anybody else did near the rivers, the Yellow River. You had 3 rain rivers. You had the Yellow River, the Wang River, the Suwang River, I want to say. But either way, it was 3 major rivers in China, or Manchuria is what it's really called. Manchuria is where the native people started their dynasties, the Shang dynasty and all this other stuff, which again, the pale Asians are coming from the north. Next to China, you have North Korea and South Korea. Here's the Yellow Sea, just like they got a Yellow River. And again, South Koreans and North Koreans become more pillar through the trade, just like Russians. Up here again, because all pale people are coming from the north somewhere, not because of the climate, because the North Pole is an electromagnetic frequency. It's not a pole, it's a pole because it's telling you that it's an electromagnetic frequency that attracts things. It's a gate, it's a portal, but I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave it right there. We know that's scientifically proven. Now, this is why they call it a pole. This is why when you get near it, it's so much wind blowing. It's so cold, the temperature is so off. It's a different world. That's all I'm gonna say. It's going back to North Africa, Northwestern Africa, y'all. Come on now, look how big this is. This is why they had to start religions and nations, because again, everybody doing everything. But to keep things common and unionized so we can empower things, people started what? Legions, which we still run down in religion, like Muslims or all this other stuff. Judaism, which again stems from King Judah. Remember, the English word, which is new, only had a few syllables, which was stolen from Greek and Latin. So the D and the B are reversible. Don't let that confuse you, because it's King Judah is a real person. And him having an encampment or a post in the Middle East so he can what? Be accommodated and benefit off the trade routes that's coming from China and India, which are different spices and silk and fabric. He had a trade post over there called the Kingdom of Juba or Juda. And Judah went to war with Carthage. Later on in history, once you find out around 200 AD. And this is how Carthage started falling, because they were not only going to war with them, but they was also going to war with Rome in the north. And King JUDA took Rome's side in order to take over this coast, the Carthage coast, which was all Phoenicians. Do you get me? And then they also started invading Egypt, or Misraim at the time. This is why that counts. But nobody tell you this part, especially the Israelites. And I'm not trying to come at y'all. I'm trying to show y'all that we got to stop the schism and prove it. Because you could be right, like you're right. Our people are part of the children, God of children. But can you explain that? It's like children. You got the answer, but can you show your work? I can show my work. I can prove how our people are part of the 12 tribes. I can prove how our people are part of the Morocco Empire, not the state. And we're American. I can prove how we're indigenous American through my own background, and that I descend from the Mayans, who came up here and made the Yamasee tribes and different tribes like the Creeks and all the Muscogees and stuff, and we was dark, copper-skinned people. And the people across the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, was lighter and mixing with more paler people, because they was just coming from the Inuit tribes up here in Bering Straits. And then some of them sailed over here in boats way before Jesus times, before Christ. It was over here in Mexico, because we was trading over here with Hawaiians and stuff over here in New Zealand and all these other things which make the poly, which means many people, Polynesians. Via through Austronesians and the pale people that are magically coming from the North Pole. I'm gonna keep that way. And the fact that we made their genetics readable or mateable for our genetics, because some things can't mate. And this is the whole Jacob or Jacob story in the Bible, and it's in the Quran. This is how you can find truth. This is why people respect the Quran so much, because it hasn't been really translated from its classic Arabic. So if it's in there, that means it's coming from an original book out in Egypt somewhere, where they had to translate it in Hebrew because they was going through war. And they wanted to, as they were starting a new regime, they wanted to still keep parts of the culture that came from the old regimes that parent and fostered their new regime, which was happened to be Muslims in the 700s. And to back that claim up, if people ever look up Arabic is not made in the 711s. That's when the Muslims come about. Arabic is actually made 700 something BC, 1,000 years before the Muslims come out. So this is how you know something is going on, and it's not established until 711 BC. Till 711 AD, after death of what they're going to be, which they call a legion or religion. And before that, it was just coming together, just like a nation does. This is why I'm putting out the books. This is why I'm putting out American Covenant. This is why I'm putting out the American Functionality. This is why I'm putting out the American Antiquity story, so we can understand our story. Understand why people want your resources, why people are jealous of you. And it's that spit that they talking about that's happening in Africa. See what I'm saying? So why they didn't call this a different continent, right? This a little split right here. Why they didn't call East Africa its own continent? So that's what I mean, y'all live by somebody else's narrative. And I get the agreeance part, because if we agree that this is all Africa, if we agree that that's Europe, then at least we got some agreements. Because if we don't, and we end up calling a little space like this its own continent, then when somebody come up to somebody else and say, hey, I just visited such and such, and they got such and such, you might want to go over there and go get such and such. You won't be able to understand where and what is such and such, because you thinking such and such is actually Africa, but another group of people think this East Africa is its own continent, and they call it Labiba or something. And you're like, well, what is Labiba? It's on the other side of Africa. You're like, well, nigga, that's China or something. See what I'm saying? It's called miscommunication. And miscommunication and a lack of knowledge always sponsors ignorance. Ignorance sponsors what? The smart people. And this is how they get rich. So this is what I'm doing, y'all. I'm healing the world, even with knowledge. This is part 2. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, peace, family. Peace, peace to the Talktown Americans. Peace, peace to all the Talktowns everywhere. Shout out to my Africans. Shout out to my Indonesians. Shout out to my Australians. You feel me? Shout out to my Indians, my Dravidians. Shout out to the House of Cali, man. Love y'all, man. Each one teach one. We got to grow, baby. This is the Atlas, man. This is the Atlas. One day, instead of saying just Queen of England, dedicated to Queen of England, we're going to say dedicated to the nobles of America, who was part of the original initiation of trading globally. This is why we're at the butt of it right now. This is what the Bible was talking about. I will put the first last, and I put the last first. But at the end, the first will be last, and the last will be first. Everything got to be reversed. This is just how synchronicity go. This is how electromagnetic frequency moves. With a time to be alive. Peace.